now that we have created the basic shell for the 10 Copyright Commandments webinar, let's see what else we can do and what else we should do to build it out. Now again, everything that we've already done is fully customizable and we can go and we can edit, but there are some session settings here and there's a lot of stuff that is on here that is default that we want to work with. So let's go through them one at a time and see what changes we might make and why. The audio settings, again, are we talked about that being the VoIP or the long distance. My recommendation is leave this as is, or for both. But if you're uncomfortable or if you are working with a clientele that's very uncomfortable about VoIP or that really doesn't know how to use it, and you are going to be hearing more people, kvetching and complaining that they can't hear you, then you probably are better off, disabling that and just staying with long distance, with the telephone number. Okay, if you make any changes to anything, whether you're making changes here or anywhere, you always have an option to notify all of the affected participants of the changes. So if you've had people who have already signed into your platform and they've already received a note from GoToWebinar saying that they can log in and listen to you, using VoIP and telephone method, and you change that, then what you want to do is definitely send them another note back and notify everybody who has already registered that there has been a change. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, we're going back, is going to be panelists. So you can always add panelists later. You don't have to add the panelists at the time that you create the webinar. You can do this later on. So you may decide you want to have a webinar on a given day and then, collect some panelists later. Don't add their names before you've had a chance to speak with them, but you may have people attend after you have done that already. So what happens here is, again, I really suggest you contact them first and ask them, make sure the date is okay, and then of course you'll be having some discussions about their input, and that's going to be covered in the checklist. But in the meantime, what happens is you'll be putting their name here and their email address, and then they will appear actually on the program and on the holding page in the waiting area as panelists. So you can also resend the invitation emails. If you have panelists who are registered, you may want to do that. You may always want to remind people about a webinar. Let's see, branding and theme. Again, this is all stuff that you can change. You can change the logo. You can change the pictures. Presenters appear in the room here. You can add, of course, if you're the presenter, you want to have your name. You can add other presenters. You can have presenter images, and you can have up to 6 in that room at any point in time. Again, always remember to preview and spend some time with the preview, making sure you've got everything done right. You can also have a welcome message. What I usually have as my welcome message is something that says, make yourself comfortable. I'll be with you shortly. Typically, I log into my webinars about 30 minutes before just to make sure everything is okay. Sometimes people arrive 15 minutes or so prior to the appointed hour. People who have known me and attended my webinars for years, and there were many of those folks know that is my that's my MO, and very, very often people will arrive early, so we have a chance to chat a little bit and catch up. So, again, for future reference, if you're attending live webinars, I like to get there about 15 minutes ahead. It's a good idea to do that. It's a good idea to let people know they can come early. It gives you a chance to interact. It gives you a chance to engage. It gives you a chance to speak with people. It gives you a chance to check your audio to make sure that people can hear you. It gives you a chance to hear, what their background noise is like. If you have a small group and and you can keep it interactive, and you don't have to mute everybody. That's kind of cool, because then you have a very, very interactive presentation. People can engage, and it becomes very, very personal. It's a lot of fun. It's really, really great. I think that's great. And again, 15 minutes before gives you a lot of opportunity to catch up and get to know people personally. Okay, we did that. We're email notifications. Okay, so let's go to email notifications now. And this is very neat. This is one of the neat things about GoToWebinar. Now, I'm going to mention a couple of things about email, because again, this is coming from their platform, and they have emails that are built in that are done for you. You've probably seen them a million times. You sign up for a webinar, and the first thing you get is an email saying, thanks for registering. And when the webinar is over, you get a webinar. We're going to talk about that, because those are all generated by the system. They're all, they're all different. There is some default text, and you can let the system, use the default text, or you can personalize it. And I highly recommend that you personalize it. The other question becomes, do you want to use their emails, or do you want to use your own from your own autoresponder? And again, that's a matter of choice. I like to use both. I'll be honest with you. I really, really like to use both. I like to use a combination. I let the GoToWebinar platform send stuff out. I make sure that it's personalized. And then, because I'm using a webinar bridge that you can see about in another one of the videos here, at the same time that people are registering for a webinar, I'm putting them into a campaign. Now, if they're already in a campaign, and if a subscriber is already on my mailing list and they register for a for a webinar, that's not necessary. Unless I'm doing another kind of campaign on another subject, and the messaging is all very, very different. It's not necessary to do that all the time. When I created this webinar and I put the webinar in the platform, let me go over here for a second here, over to Blog Mother Fran. When I created the event at Blog Mother Fran, and also at HUD Homes Fever on the other site, I just put the registration link right here, and that's all that was necessary. So there was no bridge attached to that. That type of registration does not put you onto another mailing list or anything. And again, you created a link. It asks for your name and email address, and that becomes your private link to the event. Each participant in the event has a unique link. Everybody is logged in separately. You can't share the link with other people because it's your link. People have to register independently. You can share it, and depending upon how you set it up with the platform, a number of things can happen. If I have a webinar and I have, Davy Jones appearing as a registrant, and Davy Jones appears as a registrant 20 or 30 times, that tells me that somebody was sharing a link. That might be okay sometimes, and it might be okay on a free webinar. I mean, on a free webinar, I don't know why people wouldn't want to have their own anyway, because they will get, they'll get notifications and follow-ups and so forth and so on. But if I'm doing a paid webinar, or if I'm doing a webinar that's part of a program where people are paying a premium, and I see 20 attendees with the same name using the same link, I'm going to delete them, most of the time, because that's just not a cool thing to do. And I don't see that happen a lot. I see it happen occasionally, but happily not too much. But that's something that for you to think about. Every time somebody registers on a GoToWebinar link, they are creating a ticket to the event for themselves in their name and for their email address, and all of these emails that are generated from the system are going to go to the email address that actually registered for the event. So let's take a look at these, and let's see what your choices are and how to proceed, what the best way to go. So we have email. You have a choice of sending it in HTML or in plain text. The HTML, it seems to have very, very good delivery rates as far as I can tell. I just leave it at that. This says, it gives you a chance to preview the webinar invitation, and this is what it looks like. So when the invitation goes out, when they, This is the invitation to register for the webinar. So when I want to invite people, and if I want to invite them from the platform, they get this, and they have to actually click on the link, or on the button here, or on the link to actually register. So there's an invitation to register, and that's not something I mess with a whole lot. Okay. You can also have it email you the invitation. You can personalize the emails, and here we go. And so here we have an email. The subject line is a confirmation with the webinar address. You see that? Okay, that's what that is. It allows 297, or I have 297 more allowed, so 384 max. So you can see that is a pretty big subject line already, and I don't really see any reason to make it any longer than that. Here's how it will read: Dear first name, whatever first name they use on the registration. Thank you for registering. It inserts the webinar link. It says, please do not share this with others. The link is unique to you. You will be connected using the computer's microphone and speakers. A headset is recommended. There we go. So because I registered here with this email address, that remains there. I can add other text here. I can change the email address. I may want to direct questions back to Webinar Fever. Actually, I may want to create a separate email address that collects email germane to this project, and so that might be something I would consider doing, and I do that on occasion. I can add this to the calendar. People who receive this email will be able to add the event to their calendar, and then of course you can preview and see what that looks like. Now, you also have the ability to choose additional email and tell the system exactly when to say it. So here are the default times to send out emails to people you are inviting and also to registrants. So what they recommend is 1 week before, 1 day, and 1 hour before. And I think that's fair enough. I take it one step further again with my own autoresponder. And I will also, with my own autoresponder, send an additional one the day before, one an hour before, and I will also send one out about 5 minutes before. In addition, I may want to add an SMS text message so that on that person's phone, they get a message saying, you know what, the webinar is about to start. Check your email, log in. We're starting in a couple of minutes. I may want to do that. Of course, you can only do that if you have their text and their cell phone, and you have permission to do that. So if you have, in the course of your communication with your registrants, if you been able to secure that information, you can use that very effectively. The other way that is really, really excellent and that works wonderfully to increase attendance is a voicemail message. And by delivering a voicemail message to your registrants' phones just before the event is going to start. The other thing that you can do with your autoresponder system is something else, because with the autoresponder system over at Instant Customer, let me give you an example. When you're doing an event over there, and this is a little bit more germane to Evergreen webinars right now for when they sign up for the Evergreen, and they're working on a live webcast platform right now. You can actually design that system in such a way that if you have, let's say you have 100 people who have registered for your event and 50 of them show up, well, you can actually have that set up so that if you have a bank of registrants who have not, clicked the link and actually attended, that the system, you can prompt the system and say, okay, if anybody hasn't attended, 5 minutes after it starts, segment that group, and send them a notice and tell them we're live. Come on, don't miss it. And that is something else that has proven to really increase attendance a lot at webinars. And that, again, is using your own cross-channel marketing in conjunction with GoToWebinar in a way to make it more powerful than ever. So let's see, what do they say here? Yes, it says it suggests that you send the reminder at least twice. I agree wholeheartedly. You can also, change this. You can, you can change that even more. You can preview that email. That's a reminder. It's a reminder of the date and the time. And then afterward, when the event is over, you can send follow-up email. And again, this is something you can send. A lot of people send it out the next day, and some people send it out the next hour. Some people wait even longer than that. The default is 1 day. I think if they did attend, it doesn't matter if it's a day or an hour. What I do think is important is that you actually personalize it, because what they say here is, thank you for attending our webinar. We hope you enjoyed our event, blah, blah, blah. Okay, but you can add some stuff. You may be offering something in your webinar. You may be offering a special report. You may be offering access to a video. You may be offering a special list of, the list of all the foreclosures in the area. You may be offering a list of staging tips. You may be offering something really, really cool. And if you're offering something and you're promising to deliver that after the webinar, then you might want to make this an hour after, and make sure that you type this, write this in. Here is your list. List of, here we'll say list of bank properties. Bank properties. Boy, I'm a terrible typist, I'll tell you. As promised. Okay, and then what you do is you'll actually insert the link here. You may have that, I don't know where you have that stuff, your domain.com, bank list, PDF, whatever. Whatever it is you have, you can put the link in and put that link right in the follow-up email that goes out from GoToWebinar. And that's a really, really, really neat thing to do. And do that in advance. So plan that in advance. As we talked about, you're going to plan what your handouts are, plan what your bonuses are, plan what you're sharing. The other thing you may want to do, and which is a really great idea, is to give them a link to your website. Maybe a link to register for something else. Maybe you're doing an open house, whatever. You have an opportunity here to reach these people who you had talked to. All right. Now, what about the people who did not attend? What about the people who never showed up? Well, you don't want to send them the same thing, because here do we say thank you? Yeah, we're saying thank you for attending the webinar. So you're not going to say thank you for attending the webinar if they didn't attend. Let's see what GoToWebinar says in their personalization. They say, sorry you were not able to attend our webinar. Please send your questions, comments, and feedback to, and that's where they leave it. So that's where you can really, really capitalize when you record your webinar, when you offer, and you may want to say, don't fret, I recorded the webinar. Okay, you can see it, give the link, where people can find it. One of the things that you definitely want to do here with that kind of message is, is introduce some level of scarcity. If they know that it's there and they can see it anytime they want, then there's a real good possibility that they'll never go back. If you tell them it's only going to be posted for a week, or only going to be posted for 48 or 72 hours, that's something else. And that increases, a whole measure of urgency. And if it's something that is really, really interesting to them, they're going to make a point of going and seeing it and watching the replay. If it's not interesting to them, and and they're really not interested, that's fine. Then maybe that it's not really, really good targeted traffic, and maybe that's really not a really, really good prospect for whatever whatever niche it is you're working on. So, don't worry about that, but definitely assign a time limit and follow up. Again, in the meantime, make sure you have everybody captured on a list that you own. Because this is a GoToWebinar list, and this is not a list where an email company, an email autoresponder company, with a whole lot of integrity is going to let you just upload these contacts and start sending them stuff. If you have an email company that lets you do that, I'll be honest with you, I think that is something that's a red flag about the service you're using, because the stuff that the people that I'm using that just is not allowed. When people take advantage of a system like that, when they abuse a system like that, they create spam. And when you have a system that is responsible for creating a lot of spam, then that system starts to suffer terrible issues with deliverability and reliability of service. And if you are, housing, lots of people in a list on that, your own deliverability and your own email is going to suffer. So you want to be with you want to house your list, and you want to see it residing on a place where the managers and the people who operate that system are, have the integrity not to do that. Let's go back to our webinar here for a second, see what else we have to work with. We just did the email settings. Polls. Okay, so we can, for some reason, my poll disappeared. I probably didn't save it. You can create polls that you can conduct inside the course of your live webinar. There's single answer poll, multiple answer polls, and again, this is very, very simple. How many houses did you sell last year? Okay. This is going to be a single answer question. And we can say none. We can say 1 to 5. We can say 6 to 10. We can say 11 to 20, and obviously people are going to be doing much higher numbers than that. And then we can create the question, and then we can create several polls. And if you're going to have a webinar that's about an hour long, you might want to have 2 or 3 polls, and then space them out at about 20-minute intervals. What you're doing at that point in time is you are, just engaging them, making them click on something, making them think about something, connecting your webinar, your material to them, showing them how they compare with other people who are on the webinar, regardless of what the question is. And that's a very, very good engagement tool. And GoToWebinar does a great thing with that. In the meantime, anytime somebody answers a poll on your webinar, that answer, the answer to the poll, the answer to the surveys, or everything that they do in terms of engagement, appears on an Excel spreadsheet. And when the event is over, you can download that spreadsheet, and you will have access to that information. Same thing with the survey. Again, the survey is something that happens on the registration form. We talked about that already. And you can have different kinds of surveys. You can have multiple answers. You can have a scale of 1 to 5, short phrases and essays. So you can ask people, all kinds of questions. I answer surveys. Sometimes people are looking for information. What kind of surveys could you do on your registration form? You may want to be talking to investors. You may, ask people, have they owned investment properties? What are their questions about real estate investment properties that they would like you to answer on the webinar? You might want to ask, do you want me to contact you personally and give them an opportunity to respond to you in the survey form? Now, if you do that in the survey form, then you really need to be going back, because all of that information is available in a CSV form. Let me show you that for a second here. In a CSV form on the on the webinar, on a completed webinar. So I have, on this, I don't have one on this practice session. Sorry about that. And I don't, I'm really, really reluctant to pick one up and show you something for a live one I have, because I don't want to violate any privacy issues, and I don't want to show names, and I haven't gone through all of the, rigmarole of, uploading a sheet and, crossing out people's names so you can't see them. I just haven't done that. But you can take my word for it, because you can get reports. You go to the generate reports over here. You can get a registration report and that's for everybody who registered. You get an attendee report afterwards and a performance report that gives you details of the entire webinar from start to finish, and shows you how engaged people were and everything else. So that's what you can do. Let's see, one more thing, and you may want to require a webinar password. If you require a webinar password, you've got to think about that yourself, and you have to send it to people from outside of the system, or they can't enter the webinar. So when you set up your webinar, they will ask you what you want the password to be, and then you have to use your other autoresponder to actually tell them what that password is. I've never used passwords. It could be something that you want to do and test a little bit and see if people have a problem. I'm just always reluctant to make things any more complicated than they have to be. It seems like even if you do things really, really simply, there is some measure of attendees who are going to have problems with technology no matter how easy it is. And that's one of the reasons I haven't done this. If you're working with a group and you have a group that's really, really good, tech-savvy group that's cool with all this stuff, and you have reasons to be using passwords, then, be my guest, go for it, and come back and talk to us about it somewhere in one of our forums, and let us know, why you did that, how it worked out, and let's hear about that. Okay, so on to the next one.